What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? No, Capone. No. Hey, in your house. What's up, y'all? Come on in and let the room pick up just a little bit. We are going to let it pick up just a little bit. Our declaration is don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Yep. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Blessings to everyone that's coming in. Don't be desperate. Somebody tell your neighbor, don't be desperate. The point to ponder, or the question to ponder tonight is it really worth selling your soul to the devil just to say that you got something that resembles what the Lord promised you? I'm gonna ask that again. Is it really worth selling your soul to the devil just to have a portion or something that resembles what the Lord has promised you? Now, I know some of y'all are saying nope, but like we really got to understand that sometimes the things that the enemy presents to us, it's tempting. It's very much so tempting. But the thing about it is, you didn't go through everything that you went through, all the lessons, all the storms, all the trials and tribulations, to act like you ain't got no sense. It's like, you know how some kids are? Like, you know, when they're at home, when they're with their parents, listen, they got some act right. But it's like the minute they go out, you know, whether it's in a store, whether it's with somebody else, they act like they don't have any home training. What God is saying is, don't come out of the wilderness, right? And get to the point where God has you pursuing what He's promised you, to start acting like you have no home training. Don't get to that point where integrity goes out the window. If you don't believe that it happens, think about all the people that God has given platforms to, where at one point they were anointed, right? But then success hit them, money came, and they just went abort mission. I'm going to just forget about everything that I learned during my process. And a lot of times what we see with people like that is that it eats them up in the end, right? God will dethrone, He'll remove whatever idol they have made an idol of. This revelation came earlier today. I went to view another home. I knew that like it wasn't the one, but God was adamant on me going to view a home today. Like I wanted to cancel because I'm like, I'm not wasting my time if I know that it's not it, God. But what I didn't understand was that He needed me to go because there was revelation that He needed to give me about the home, that my offer wasn't taken. There was information that I needed. And so we go into the house, and I asked my realtor at the door, I'm like, so you know, with the house that didn't take my offer, what was the actual offer that they took? What did they get for that? Like, what deal did they take? Because, you know, sometimes I was just curious. Because I'm like, Lord, I gave a fair offer. So, what did they take? And she told me, she said, I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know that they offer way more than what the house was listed for. And she said they told the sellers, the people that were selling the house, that pretty much they didn't care what the bank appraised it for because they would pay over what it was appraised for. They just literally said, you know, this sale is not appraisal contingent. And you know, anyone that knows houses, you know, like you can see a house online for a certain price, right? And if the bank appraises it for less than what it's listed for, that the buyer or the seller has to sell it for whatever price the bank appraises it for. So in the event that the house is worth less than what whoever's offer was accepted was like for, let's just say they offered $280,000. If the bank appraises it for $250,000, that means that in addition to all the other expenses, the person buying the home has to cover that $30,000 because the bank will not cover it. And so I was just looking like, who does that? Like, who does that? Not only who does that, what seller would want someone to do that, right? And you know, I knew like God, you know, as I was like seeking him about it, I knew that a part of it was about fear, but a part of it was like about desperation. Like even now when I was talking about the logistics of what I wanted to offer, like my mindset was like, I'm not selling my soul to the devil to get a house. I'm just not. If I got to do all that, if you got to, you know, abort your morals, abort the principles that God has like taught you, like, is it really worth it? And I mean, certain people will say like, no, it ain't worth it. But like, let's be real. When you're presented with something that you feel you need, something that you've been waiting for, and it looks sweet, there are realistically some people that sell their soul to the devil. We see it in the music industry. We see it in the church. We see it all over, where a person's desire, their idolatry of what God has promised them, like it makes, you know, them just say discernment is going out the window, integrity is going out the window. It makes people want to play dirty. And if I can be real, like some of you guys that are still in your process, you really got to be thankful that your process is as tough as it is. It's about your protection. It's about making sure that you're right where you need to be. That God is the center, that he is first, that he is the most important thing. And to those of you guys that have been getting no's in this hour, you also ought to just thank God that he's protecting you. You see, I wasn't mad. I knew the first night I placed the offer on the home, I knew that I wasn't going to get it. God told me, you're not going to get that house. But I didn't understand why he had me apply. It was about the revelation. God needed me to see that people really are. The realtor even told me they are offering these sellers everything but their blood. And she was absolutely right. And what she said, you know, today she said, you know, but, you know, I'm not one of those people. I never, ever encourage my clients to like take away like appraisals. Like I never, ever encourage them to do that. And then I heard the Lord say, ask my people, like, is it really worth selling your soul to the enemy just to get something that resembles what God has promised you? Like, are you really desperate? Because let's be real. There are some of y'all that are here where you really have been desperate. You've been desperate for money, desperate for a job, you've been desperate. And because of your desperation, it's the reason why God hasn't released certain things. He's waiting for you to understand that the vision that he gave you is set in stone. Receiving the breakthrough, receiving the blessing, receiving the promise, if I can be real, there still has to be a conscious level of submission to God. There has to be. It was very tempting when I was putting the offering on the house to say, let's do this, let's do that. But then the more and more she talked, I said, no, I'm not doing all that. Why would I do all that? Like, for real. Why would I do all of that? I'm not doing it. If I got to do all that, it ain't the one. And this is like why I always tell y'all that, like, when it's God, it flows. When it is God, it flows. You ever like try to like fit a key into like an old lock on a door, and it may not turn as smoothly, and so in the South what we say is you kind of gotta jimmy the key a little bit. You kind of gotta wiggle it around a little bit just to get the lock to move, just to unlock the door, right? You never have to do that when it's something that God wants to give you, when it is something that he has promised you. You never ever have to settle. And if we can be real, it's what some of you guys have been doing, jimmying the key, hoping that it opens a door. Then you get mad at God when he blocks it, when the door doesn't open. But the question is, who told you that the thing that you're pursuing, the thing that you're adamant about, was what God promised you? A telltale sign that like something is not like sent by God is when you have confusion about it. Like you ain't hearing God say nothing about it. You iffy about it, whether it's a job, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a home, whether it's a vehicle. Because when it's yours, oh, God is going to talk. He's going to lead you. He's going to give you strategy. But the thing about it is that there have been some of you guys where, bless you, Capone, there have been some of you guys, right, where you have literally, you've literally been pursuing, not hearing God say anything. You pursue when you hear God is quiet. There are some of y'all where if someone were to ask you, is this what God has for you? You kind of like, I don't know. Baby, when it's God, there's a surety. There's a surety in it, in the blessing. When I sat in that car, I knew it was the one. When I moved to where I am, I knew it was the one. So if you got a question, if something is sent by God, you already got your answer. You already got your answer. And you'll save yourself a lot of time by just surrendering, by submitting, by asking each blessing that presents itself to you. Who sent you? God, is this mine? Is this mine? It's kind of like Christmas time. Christmas time is a time of the year where many people give gifts, right? They'll wrap your gifts real pretty. I'm not the best, rapper, but I do a little something. But the thing about it is, you're not going to open a gift if you're not sure that it's yours. Give me a 1 if you get what I'm saying. Like, if you ain't sure on if this is your present, baby, you're not unwrapping that gift. You're going to wait until someone confirms. Y'all see where I'm going? You're going to wait until someone confirms that it's for you. Some of you guys are not waiting on the confirmation. Some of y'all are not waiting on the confirmation from God. You ain't waiting on God to say, this is the job for you. This is the home for you. You're pursuing blindly and just hoping that you luck up. And in the process of you just pursuing it blindly, what you don't realize is that at that point, you have totally negated every single lesson that God taught you in the wilderness. You're not using your discernment. You ain't praying. You ain't fasting about this thing. When has God ever led us blindly? Sometimes he does, but when has he ever not given us details concerning things that we needed to know? But some of y'all are so afraid that you're going to miss what God has for you, that unconsciously what you are doing is saying, I'll settle for what's being presented to me. One, because it's better than nothing, and it resembles what God has promised me enough. It resembles it enough. Hey, Pastor Ron, don't know if I spoke to you yet. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Hey, Miss Allen. Somebody tell your neighbor, don't be desperate. Receiving a blessing from God, receiving a promise from God, it never compromises your faith. Ooh. It never compromises your faith. It never compromises the principles that you live off of. It never compromises, come on, your ability to hear God. It doesn't compromise anything. It doesn't compromise who God has called you to be. It enhances who God has called you to be, but it never compromises. And it's the reason why some of y'all have not really had peace. Who are you? There are some of y'all where, like this week, last week, this weekend, you've been pursuing things and you ain't really had no peace about it. It's not saying that you've been anxious, but maybe you've been a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe you've been like feeling like, I don't really know. I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really know if this is God. I don't really know. God ain't really saying nothing about this thing. Why do you pursue if God hasn't said anything? It's just like even, this evening, I was looking at homes, I was packing, and I saw a home that kind of, it fit the vision, right? And immediately before I even reached out, did not reach out, but I thought about reaching out to my realtor to show her this house. I prayed, and the Lord said, that's not the house for you. Yeah, I know it fits the vision, but that one is not it. It ain't it. It is imperative in this hour that you not blindly pursue anything that you're not sure about. It's extremely imperative that you not allow your desperation to get out of a certain circumstance, a certain struggle, to make you pursue when God ain't saying pursue. God always tells us when it's time to pursue and what to do. We can look at King David. King David used to always go to God and say, shall I pursue? Like, I know what you promised me, Lord, but shall I pursue? Like, shall I pursue? Yeah, he knew what God promised him, that God promised him victory, that God promised him the land that some of his enemies were sitting on. But he always went back and said, God, shall I pursue? And what God would say is, yes, you shall. Yes, but don't do it this way. And sometimes God would straight up tell him to wait. God would straight up tell him to wait. Listen, you can't afford to be desperate. And as my realtor was telling me about like how ruthless people are, how desperate they are, what she told me, because I'm like, why would people do that? Like, that's crazy. You telling a person that's selling their house that it don't matter what the bank appraises it for, but you're willing to pay above what the bank appraises it for, if that were the case? Are you crazy? Why would I willingly pay you 30? That's not a deal. That ain't a deal. Because guess what? I got to pay that $30,000. Well, no, I don't. But that's money that I can't put into my home, because the bank isn't going to lend me an extra $30,000 for a house when it didn't appraise for that. But I asked her, like, why? Because I was baffled. I'm like, why would somebody do that? I'm not paying nobody $30,000 over what something is worth. That's like me buying a pair of Jordans and they $150, and somebody like paid $1,500 for these. You are a lie. The truth ain't in you. You can keep these shoes. In fact, I've done it. Who finna pay $400 for some shoes that sold for $180? You crazy. I will wait until I find it for the retail price. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. But when I asked her why were people doing that, here's what she said. She said because people are impatient and they're tired of looking. So prophetic. She said they're impatient and they're tired of looking. And as she was saying that, what God was breaking it down was, my people are tired of like looking for what I promised them, so they're becoming willing to settle, even if like the terms that they settle for hurts them in the end. Even if it creates a self-created storm in the end. My people, listen, he said some of my people, because they're battle weary. They don't even care about the specifics. They don't care if they come up on the short end of the stick. And the Lord straight up asked me, he said, when have I ever added sorrow to anything that I've given my children? When have I ever added sorrow to a blessing? When have I ever added sorrow to the promises that I've made my children? And I said, Lord, never. You've never done that. And he said, I won't start now. And I knew what God was telling me in that moment was, you don't settle. I know you're on a time frame. I know you got a week to find what you need. I know you got a week. I know the deadline. But I knew God was saying is, you don't have to sell your soul to the devil to receive what I freely want to give you. And if we can be real, sometimes when we're impatient, it makes us rush. It brings us into that mind space where even if we know that something is not a promise that God has made us, right? Well, we be like, it's good enough. How many of y'all have been feeling that way lately? Like, God, this good enough. I know that you said I wouldn't be doing another job in this field, but God is good enough. I know you said this, but God, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. This good enough. I can make do with this. I can make do with this. And like, even in that moment, in this moment, God is flashing me back to like the bathroom in that home that my offer didn't get accepted. I didn't like the counters in the bathroom. The home was beautiful. The decor was gorgeous. But like, there were certain things that I'm like, God, I can do with that. I can work around that. But when has God ever asked us to work around the vision? When has he ever asked us to work around the vision? Never. Never. Somebody say never. He has never asked us to work around the vision. And he won't start now. Don't be desperate and do not settle. Because the thing about it is, God can see things that you can't see. He knows things that you don't know. I said, Lord, now that I'm looking, hindsight is 22, and I'm like, Lord, they said that they fixed a leak, on this house. They fixed a leak on it. And so I'm like, God, if it was a roof leak, because I have that experience, I'm like, it's only a matter of time. I don't know if the leak was repaired correctly. It's only a matter of time before another area starts leaking, especially since they didn't replace the whole roof. It's only a matter of time. And that's the thing about God. He knows things that we don't know. Do not settle. Do not settle. Do not settle. God said, say it again. Do not settle. Do not settle. And that's the broadcast, man. That is it. It's not worth it if you gotta abort everything that God has taught you. It's not worth it if your faith suffers. It's not worth it if you're gonna settle. It's not worth it if you come up on a short end of the stick. That makes it sorrowful. And you may not experience the sorrow from settling, right? You may not notice it right away, but months on down the line, years on down the line, guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna hit you. It's gonna hit you. That's the broadcast. Desperation is your worst enemy when it revolves around receiving what God has for you. Desperation is your worst enemy when it comes to receiving what God has promised you. Yeah, it is. It's your worst enemy. It is your worst enemy. And that's the broadcast, man. That's it. Somebody tell your neighbor, don't be desperate. Don't do it. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. To those of you guys that need to sow, whether you're sowing via the PayPal or the Cash App, the seed title is Don't Be Desperate. The seed title is Don't Be Desperate. If you know you need to sow, just simply say, that's me, Apostle. That's me. Maybe you needed this reminder. There are several of you guys here that need to sow. Several. Do I have anyone that needs to be sown for before I get off of here? Visha's not the only person that needs to sow. She's not the only person. Some of you guys are just now tuning in. You need to catch this thing from the replay so that you may receive the full word. Do I have anyone that needs to be sown for? Do I have anyone that needs to be sown for? If we're good, just give me a 1 on the screen. If we're good, just give me a 1 on the screen. I love y'all. I am rooting for you guys. I can barely keep my eyes open, y'all. I'm going to bed early tonight. Do you hear me? early. And so, I love y'all. I am rooting for you. If you need prayer for anything or have a testimony, you guys can send it to prayer.thoughtsbyt@gmail.com. Testimonies have been coming in all day. God rectifying things. God bringing financial release. Whew. Do I have anyone that needs to be sown for? Excuse me. All right. I guess that's a no. But listen, the seed title is Don't Be Desperate. Love y'all, rooting for you. So until next time, y'all. Peace.